The entire Mavericks series, Steph Curry was hunted relentlessly and put in ball screen defense, which he spent hedging to avoid getting switched onto Luka Doncic. While hedging was not a perfect solution to slowing down the Mavericks' 5-out offensive attack, it did keep Steph Curry off and Wiggins on Luka to keep the matchups intact. So it was a little startling to see them willingly switch Steph Curry onto Jason Tatum out the gate from game 1. The reason for this is because Jason Tatum's 2 worst skill sets are isolation and post-ups, ranking in the 20th percentile in isolations and the 28th percentile in post-ups, both below average. Playing out of the post and isolations was also easier to send help and stagnate the Celtics offense and turn it into a one-on-one contest versus their drive and kick motion. For example, in this clip here, he gets pool switched onto him. 5 Warriors are basically zoned up with eyes on Tatum, ready to help, and it forces a tough pull-up that Tatum ends up missing. It's also easier to trap instead of sending help and force the ball out of Tatum's hands and get deflections and steals and stagnate the offense even more. While Draymond Green is the most important defender for the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins was absolutely vital to this title run in this defensive system. His ability to defend Tatum and Brown one-on-one and have the versatility to switch, to help, to be the one-on-one defender, to cut off drives, it's incredible. Honestly, I can't say enough about how impressive his entire postseason was, but especially against the best of the best. When the Warriors have a player isolated on the wing, they usually preload help here. They don't even bother to send help when Wiggins is on Tatum one-on-one, forces the air ball. Same thing here, forces a contested air ball. It's incredible to see how he was able to just basically stop Brown or Tatum from getting what they wanted to do. When Brown or Tatum were driving to the lane, he was able to cut them off and then contest or even block some of their pull-up attempts. When he's in low help, he was always in the right position, ready to use his length and versatility, using his verticality. Watch how he fights through this pin down here, chases Tatum around when they're trying to hunt Steph, recovers in the right position, ends up getting a block at the rim. Game 1s are always a test to see how the team is going to defend, who they're going to play, what the other team is going to do to attack it, and just kind of feel out each other in the process. Now in game 1, the Warriors defense did a pretty basic job of defending all actions, didn't do a ton of switching, and stayed conventional on a lot of things. The main thing they did was help off of Horford. So Draymond would be willing to help because he's the best help defender in the NBA and leave Horford open for threes. Their theory is essentially the same thing as they played the Mavericks. They're going to leave open the Celtics' worst three-point shooters. So players like Pritchard, players like White, players like Horford, and even Grant Williams would get open shot opportunities, especially early on in the series. Now you can see as they started to attack more and hit the paint more, the driving lanes opened up because of the Warriors' willingness to help first and then close out second. The Warriors also played Iguodala in game 1 a lot, in big minutes in the fourth quarter. That was also tweaked and changed as well. As Brown drives here, we can see the defense collapse, but not even stepping up to help. Draymond's worried about rotating, contesting. On a baseline drive here, we get a help the helper, leaving the corner man wide open in transition. Pritchard ends up knocking down this 3. Another example of them driving and kicking as Jaylen Brown gets kind of loony on a switch here, driving towards the baseline and then skipping opposite as White relocates. You can see the Warriors are kind of zoned up and looking and playing in the paint first, leaving that drive and kick lane open. White hits the 3. As Tatum skips it here, White drives baseline, goes like he's going to shoot it. Again, Warriors are zoned up, leaves a baseline drift. One more to Horford. Clay's going to ignore Horford over Brown every single day. And then lastly, you can see as they drive and kick early, you see Horford trailing for the 3 that essentially put it out of reach. Started, it was clear Draymond's going to set the tone physically. He starts off on Al Horford, ties him up, gets a jump ball, and starts from the jump and essentially says, we're not having this anymore. We'll be the more physical team. The other key adjustment was putting Clay on Al Horford and Draymond Green on Jaylen Brown. So Draymond has better on-ball defense on Jaylen Brown, and then Clay is on Horford. So when Draymond helps, it's an above-the-break 3 chance for Jaylen Brown versus an Al Horford spotting up. Easier rotations, and now it allows Draymond Green to help and roam off of players like Smart and Jaylen Brown and be the elite help defender that he is. So here he tags the roller Rob Williams, contests a Smart 3. Another example of this, you can see Draymond helping off in the paint, even when he's matched up with Horford here, so they can switch that action, and Horford picks and pops. So they take advantage of the help if Draymond overhelps. Another example of here from game 1, Draymond overhelps on the drive, leaves Al Horford wide open. So the counter to this, instead of having Draymond guard Horford and be the help man, which allows open catch and shoot threes, is to have Draymond on a different player, typically Jaylen Brown. So when he clogs a lane and closes out, he uses his help ability and then instincts to when to not overhelp, when to close out, and then help at the rim and have help the helper situations where his ability to not only manipulate the defense, but be the low man and tell people what's going on, extremely crucial for the Warriors defense. The other key change was starting Porter Jr. A lot of people guessed as why this happened, but essentially the main goal behind it was to keep Looney on Horford when the Celtics took Rob Williams out early in the game. So now Draymond can play Jaylen Brown or one of the other 4 guards and switch 1 through 4 pretty easily, and then have Looney on Horford to take away the threat of that spacing. Then any ball screens that are set, they would just switch Looney. So here you can see Draymond starting on Jaylen Brown, Looney on Horford. So any action that they run, Draymond now can help and then also guard Jaylen Brown. So you keep no threat of Horford picking and popping or spacing out, and then Draymond on Jaylen Brown, an elite defender and elite rim protector. Here in 5 out, when they go 5 out spacing, you see them drive here. Draymond stays and helps and recovers, but essentially nullifies any clear advantage that they had. Now, we mentioned switching Looney. The Warriors switched Looney 1 through 5, just like they did against the Mavericks and Luka Doncic. Here you can see that takes away the threat of any handoff or pick and pop action when they get a ball screen here with Tatum, where Horford may pick and pop to the corner. Looney's now on Tatum and ball pressures and is able to recover. His ability to deny Tatum the ball one-on-one and deflection and use his hands was incredible, and then funneling him into a help defense. As you can see, Klay goes low here instead of Poole. High IQ play by the Warriors, and Tatum misses the layup. Another example of them here on this random handoff from Rob Williams, playing the 2 big lineup. Looney's able to get out and contest the pull-up, one of the best individual defenders the Warriors have. The idea of keeping Draymond in low help is so important to the Warriors defense because he is an elite low help man. Not only as a help defender, but knowing when not to help, not to overhelp, and getting his hands on everything. Look at this example when Jaylen Brown drives against Poole, and listen to what Draymond tells Poole afterwards.
Robert Williams, 25 seconds to go. Golden State can get a shot here.
The idea behind this is to funnel the player into Draymond, using the correct angles, not allowing a clear lane to the rim, a straight line drive, but funneling them into Draymond so he can help out weaker defenders like Poole and Steph Curry when the players drive. One of the most important areas of help was the Warriors' gap help. On Tatum's drive here, watch Draymond stunt in the gap, get back to Brown. Then when Brown attacks the closeout, Wiggins stays in the gap, plugs that driving lane, and then closes out to a contested 3 from Tatum. This is key against the Celtics' 5-out offense, but also helping off of players like Derek White or Marcus Smart, the non-shooting threats, especially above the break from 3. Plugging that gap and not allowing a paint touch or a deep drive didn't get the Warriors defense in rotations. And there was a clear correlation between paint drives and paint touches in Celtics offense success. They had the highest amount in games 1 and 3, the lowest amount in games 2, and went lower basically as the series went on in 4, 5, and 6. So keeping them out of the paint was huge for the Warriors defense. One of the reasons they could help in the gap and help so much was they peel switched a lot, which means here on the pick and pop, Peyton is going to take Horford, Draymond's in help, and on this redrive, Draymond's going to take the ball, Steph's going to get Brown, and they just keep switching and switching back. On this little Horns pistol action, Wiggins helped off of Tatum, Steph is going to peel back onto Tatum, and Wiggins gets the block and help. A little bit of 5-out action. Klay helps off of Brown in the corner, contests the shot, and now Wiggins is going to take Brown just in case Tatum decides to kick it out, nullifying any advantage. On this post trap here, they create an advantage with 2 on the ball. Smart gets rid of it after the bounce out. They skip it. Tatum ends up attacking the closeout, and then watch Poole helping the gap, and then Peyton's going to recover out to Smart and then contest the 3. So not only were the gap helps effective, the peel switches after that. As we see the roll man here, Poole takes him, Wiggins takes Pritchard in the corner. It's a straight switch after that, and it nullifies any clear advantage for the offense. So any advantage that the Celtics might have had became nullified because of high IQ switching. Steph attacks Tatum on the switch here. Tatum drives baseline. Wiggins peel switches. Steph recovers out to White, and it's a turnover. They were able to combine all of this when they had weaker opponents switched on to players like Tatum and Brown. They switched Bjelica often. You can see Klay helping in the gap there, but then when White redrives, there's no help from Bjelica because it's a weaker driver. Same thing here, switching Bjelica, Ball pressure, putting 2 hands out, forcing Tatum to get downhill. Draymond's the low help, ends up in a turnover on the skip pass. Another switch, again, you can see Porter Jr. telling him here, get up, press up, make Tatum make a quicker decision. He drives, Clay's the low help man, over help in the paint, ends up being a turnover. Another example here, Barrett Payton 2 is in the gap, Draymond's low help, 2 best defenders, Tatum misses a tough layup. When they switched Steph, it was the same philosophy. Switch Steph and then press up and ball pressure Tatum, make him make a quicker decision. As Tatum drives here, Draymond's going to stunt and gap help off the corner. Then he's able to recover and close out enough to Jaylen Brown because it's a weak pass from Tatum because he's being pressed up so much. Again, fight in front here. Wiggins is on White, so they force Tatum into a gap help. Wiggins gaps off of White, ends up in a lazy drive. Wiggins blocks. Another example here, switch Steph out, ball pressure, force him to his left hand. Wiggins is sitting there in the gap, just waiting off of Smart. Tatum drives, and as he drives, Steph is going to peel back off of Smart, ends up being a turnover on Tatum. When Tatum did isolate, they did a really good job with their preloading their help. So Porter Jr. here is preloaded, so if Tatum drives baseline, he has nowhere to go. The help's already there. So if this ball was on one side of the floor or the other, they would really try to emphasize this. So you see Draymond here is telling Wiggins, yeah, you get Williams, I'll come over here. If Tatum drives anywhere, he's got nowhere to go. Lazy skip pass, pretty bad decision. Wiggins ends up with the steal and it goes the other way. So they preloaded help as well, especially if Tatum was on one side of the floor. If he's trying to isolate on like the wing, they would load up help to one side, so almost 3 players are tilted over to one side. Tatum's got nowhere to go, and it usually stalled out the possession. Now in game 3, quicker decisions for the Celtics helped them attack, and pretty poor point of attack defense. So they decided to start switching and blitzing. So you see Mike Brown up here telling Draymond to go. Draymond's going to blitz the ISO. White does a good job of attacking, but ends up in a pretty poor pull-up jumper that the Warriors give every time. Again, switch on Tatum. As soon as he picks the ball up here to pass, that's cue for Steph to get off and go find somebody else. So you can see that basically takes any advantage away from Tatum, ends up in a banked-in, pretty awful Smart 3. Another example of that, switch Steph. Wiggins goes and traps. As soon as he hesitates or picks it up, Steph goes and finds the next guy, has to pick up the ball, whoever it is. Drive into help, ends up kicking, good contest by Draymond. So they did this sporadically in game 3 and then some in game 5 too, especially when they tried to like post up. So you see Tatum posting up, Steph here. Wiggins just waiting till he gets almost like a scoring move or scoring area. Wiggins goes and ends up in a trap and turnover for Tatum. I thought Tatum did a good job in game 3 adjusting to this. Tatum picks and pops here, retreats back, and as soon as he catches it, he basically just jabs and goes. So the defense can't get set. Rob Williams rotates over. Tatum does a good job finishing strong downhill. Now in game 4, the Warriors' point of attack D was much improved. Clay, I thought, was really impressive on Jaylen Brown. And as soon as Jaylen Brown drove, Clay did a great job of getting his hands on the ball. I think he recognized as soon as Brown started to drive, they could start swiping, and he really forced him into tougher decisions, and he wasn't as tight with the handle as some others. But the point of attack defense was hugely important in game 4 because it was so bad in game 3. This really kind of flipped the series around, where you can see Klay Thompson just doing a great job of having active hands, swiping, getting deflections, gets one here on Tatum. So his lack of athleticism that's kind of gone from his injuries was made up for by his active hands on drives. And he didn't like swipe with the intent of necessarily getting a steal, but it was definitely a swipe with the intent of getting a deflection. Now these were all helped by dumb decisions by the Celtics. Let's just call it what it is. Sometimes they make bad decisions. Jaylen Brown here is driving basically 1-on-4 because the Warriors aren't going to help off of White. So it's just a bad decision and a bad shot and bad moments too. Smart passes to Horford when he's not looking for it, ends up being a turnover. These are what we call unforced errors, where like Tatum just throws it to the other team. This combined with the Warriors' proclivity to leave non-shooters open or make the worst shooters beat you. That's what happened in some early games. You can see Wiggins here stunting off of White and ignoring him, making him think about it at least, not even worry about him shooting. So it's just like a stunt and recover. If he makes a shot, he makes a shot. They're just not allowing Tatum and Brown and the best players to beat them. Here's a good example of all eyes on Tatum when he has the ball, waiting until he makes a decision and then they close out. That was kind of the Warriors' mantra in off-ball help, which I was really impressed with. Who gets the steal here is really important. Porter Jr. is so patient that he waits till Jaylen Brown jumps in the air and makes a decision. So all eyes are on the ball handler. Then when they make a pass, that's when they close out. So you basically are making him or baiting him into making a bad read. As Smart drives here, you can see Wiggins and Curry are just two eyes on the ball and then waiting for Smart to make a pass. So when they go to make a pass, they just remain patient. Whoever they pass to, then the closest player gets there. So you can see that was, I think, their help philosophy off the ball, which was really interesting because what it did was it made Tatum, as he goes to read what Draymond Green's going to do, Draymond's just waiting for him to make a pass. So that hesitation creates a little bit of an easier closeout for the Warriors. So you can see here, Steph Curry's just kind of zoned up, Klay's helping, and you just wait and see where they pass it, and then you close out instead of overreacting so they can read what you're doing. The best players in the NBA obviously figure out what you're going to do and then play off of it. But as Brown goes, that patience pays off because Wiggins then contest. You can see here, Porter Jr. is just waiting, reading the eyes, see what they're going to do, gets it to Smart, stunts, and then closes out, tries to close out to the next guy, and you play from there. Of course, this wasn't always perfect, but it really created some turnovers and some bad decisions by the Celtics defense that looks like it's a bad decision when they're really being baited into it. This combined with the disruptions and the aggressiveness that the Warriors defense played with Draymond denying, Gary Payton II denying here, took away a lot of sets, took away a lot of opportunities, but the disruptions by themselves maybe didn't get a steal, but it forced the Celtics into quicker decisions. And that was the entire goal of the Warriors defense is, can we make them play faster than they want to? And then when they kick it out, rotate and react. And then when they go to kick it out again, we'll just sit in the middle, read their eyes, and then make them have to make bad passes, which ended up happening. So these swipes, these active hands really force the Celtics into quicker decisions that they didn't necessarily want to have to make, and also force a lot of unforced turnovers. In game one, the Warriors didn't switch everything a ton. In game two, and especially as later the series goes on, mainly game 4, 5, and 6, they decided to just switch everything, right? We talked about Tatum and Brown's struggle in isolation and post scoring, but switching Klay here and then off ball switching Looney onto Horford here, it just took away any advantage that the Celtics might have had. So then it forces one-on-one play. There's no extra helps or rotations, and there's no gap helps needed either. So the gap help was getting burned every now and then with straight line shoot threes. But you can see the Warriors defense here when they switch up the line and then switch back here with Draymond on Horford. Draymond switches onto Brown, then Klay's on Horford, which they don't mind that matchup either. The possession basically stalls out, and Smart is going one-on-one. So now the low help comes, doesn't need to come. They use their IQ, ends up in a miss from Marcus Smart, but a one-on-one play, which is what the Warriors are trying to turn it into. A one-on-one matchup, a one-on-one game. So as White gets switched here, he hits Brown. Brown's on Draymond. Draymond's guarding one-on-one, deflection, out of bounds with 8 seconds left on the shot clock. On this pin down, Poole ends up switching onto Brown. Draymond Peel switches off of it, so that switch everything stalls it out. Steph helps, ends up in a heave Marcus Smart shot. So this switch everything basically allowed the Warriors' overall defensive system to remain intact, right? Take away any advantages, especially in the ball screen with Al Horford picking and popping. Then off-ball switches, high IQ helps, and their idea of helping low, making quicker decisions for the Celtics, and then not over-helping on those kickouts really helped the Warriors to basically take advantage of what the Celtics were trying to do, which is drive and kick. It eliminated a lot of those opportunities. When Tatum or Brown weren't handling it, the Warriors would play conventional defense, which means Looney would basically be in a drop coverage. This did allow Horford to have some pick and pop opportunities. You see Wiggins here in almost like a up to touch or drop on White, not overcommitting to Derek White or Marcus Smart in the ball screen. You can see White comes off it here. Gary Payton goes underneath it. Looney drops, ends up in a steal. So they played mainly conventional D. If it was, Smart or White or Horford involved in it, they would essentially play a drop coverage or an at the level coverage, whatever you want to call it, depending on where they are. But they would play like conventional defense if it was a below average ball handler handling the ball. The Warriors were small. One of the ways they made up for this was to swipe on offensive rebounds. So anytime Rob Williams especially got the ball, you'll see anytime he gets it, he would bring it down. I'm assuming that's in their scouting report. And Payton II, Porter Jr., whoever was around, was essentially get a hand on it and not allow him to get the rebound and just swipe as he brought it down. This combined with multiple Steph Curry looks. So throughout the series, they hedged. They would switch 3 or 4 in a row and then hedge the next one. They would have him drop sometimes. They'd have him trap sometimes. So throughout this series, the Warriors continuously gave Tatum multiple looks, even per game. So doing this essentially kept Tatum guessing, kept Brown guessing, kept the Celtics guessing. They were able to handle some of them, but essentially, if a weak player was setting the ball screen, so sometimes you'd see Derek White setting the ball screen, Steph would be a little more flat, a little more at the level or in drop coverage, if you want to call it that. And then they would switch Looney. So they would kind of throw different looks throughout the series. So here's Smart and White are setting a ball screen. Steph's basically in drop coverage and then ends up in a turnover. So you can see how they giving multiple looks and staying flat when like non-shooters or non-threats are setting the screen, and then switching when it's a more of a threat, and then hedging when they were supposed to switch and then blitz. And so just giving different looks always keeps the offense guessing. Thank you so much for checking out this breakdown. I spent a lot of time working on it. I hope you enjoyed it. I really loved watching the Warriors defense and studying what they do at the highest level. I think what they did was fantastic. All the adjustments they made were awesome. Look forward to doing more.